Alright, in the last video we had an example where we had a manufacturing plant that was manufacturing dress shirts and casual shirts. And we knew the direct material and direct labor cost for these shirts, but we had this $5,730,000 of overhead costs that we needed to allocate to the two projects. Now remember, if you want to allocate this using the traditional cost system, we would basically just take the overhead, the 5,730,000, and we would divide it by some volume-based measure like number of units produced. And you can see down here, right here, number of units. And we produced 680,000 dress shirts and 120,000 casual shirts. So 800,000 in total. So in traditional, we just divided by some volume-based measure like units. So 800,000, and we would get $7.16 per unit. And that's how we calculate the overhead. And that's a simple way of allocating overhead. But as we talked about in the last video, it can lead to some problems. So instead of allocating with a volume-based measure for the whole department, we allocated this overhead using activity-based costing, where we put ABC. And we took this $5,730,000 of overhead and we classified it into 4 different activity centers. Alright, the 4 activity level centers are unit level, batch level, product level, and facility level. And you can see we allocated 1,296,000 to the unit level. We allocated 690,000 to the batch level. We allocated 1,800,000 for the product level activity center. And finally, 1,944,000 to the facility level. And then with each cost center, within each activity center, we allocated the overhead using either a volume measure or a cost measure, and you can rewatch the last video to see how we did that. But the end result was unit level allocation, where we allocated 1,101,600 to the dress shirts and 194,400 to the casual shirts. For batch allocation, we allocated 306,000 to the dress and 384,000 to the casual. For product level allocation, we allocated 540,000 to the dress and 1,260,000 to the casual. And at the facility level, we allocated 1,652,400 to the dress shirts and 291,600 to the casual shirts. So in total, 3,600,000 was allocated to the dress and 2,130,000 was allocated to the casual shirt. But then if we take that overhead cost and divide it by the number of units produced, you can see that our overhead cost per unit for the dress shirts was $5.29. And for the casual shirts was $17.75. So per shirt, we are allocating a lot more overhead to the casual line. So if you want to look at our total cost, so in this table I have sales price that we are selling these shirts for. And we're selling the dress shirt and the casual shirt for $31 each. And then I've calculated cost of goods sold using a traditional system and an ABC costing system. Now whether we use traditional or ABC costing, our direct material cost right here and our labor cost is the same. It is $8.20 for direct materials and $6.80 for direct labor. But our overhead is quite different. With the traditional system, we allocated overhead based on the number of units produced and we got $7.16 per unit. So if we sell our dress shirt for 31 and we take out our direct materials, our direct labor and our overhead, we have a gross margin of $8.84. And it's the same for the casual shirt. That's if we use a traditional system though. Now if we use activity-based costing, sales price is the same, direct materials and direct labor is the same, but notice our overhead cost. For dress shirts, we only calculated $5.29 for overhead. And for casual shirts, we calculated $17.75 for overhead. And notice how that affects our gross margin. Dress shirts have a gross margin of $10.71, and with casual shirts, we're losing $1.75. Now, when we use activity-based costing, we can see that we are actually losing money on the casual shirts We're making money on the dress shirts, but we're losing a lot of money on the casual shirts. So we either have to increase the price that we are selling our casual shirts for, we need to sell them for more than $31, let's say, or we need to figure out a way to reduce our cost. So let's say if we cannot increase the price, we just believe that if we increase the price, we're not going to be able to sell these casual shirts. So if we cannot increase the price, we're going to have to reduce the cost. Now we can use our activity-based cost system to kind of figure out how we could reduce the cost. So if we analyze this thing, you can see that our overhead costs are really driven by the batch and product level. That's where our costs are higher for the casual shirts. Notice that for the casual shirts, we have a high batch level cost and high product level cost. And as we talked about in the last video, that's really driven by high design costs because the casual products, the design changes frequently. And since the design changes frequently, we have to pay the designers more and more. And we have to pay the attorneys more and more. And we have more setup costs, so more batch level costs. So one thing we could do is maybe just not change our design as much for the casual shirt. Maybe we could just come up with a few simple designs and rotate those designs at times. But you get the idea of how we can use ABC cost system to better allocate costs. So you can see what products are making money and which ones aren't. And also identify areas where you can probably perhaps reduce the cost.